Probably gonna have to clean off that lens just a little bit. Cloth on there. There we go. Let's see who ends up popping on here. Filter to all messages. There we go. It's so hilarious that if I don't change it to like all messages, it throws off everything. Okay. Now I've got the forge going not because we're forging stuff tonight, but because it's cold out here and I want the heater going. I do have my heater going, but I'm trying to warm it up just a little bit more. I am going to be doing some heat treating tonight, some thermocycling and whatnot. So that'll be happening. I've got this knife right here that I need to thermocycle and normalize. It's got some stuff on it to be able to do a hamon. This is 26C3. A little knife that I've been working on. I think you're supposed to get 6 inches of snow. Nice, nice, nice. I don't know how much we're supposed to end up getting. It's like we might get snow, we might not get snow. I'm in North Texas, so we'll kind of play it by ear. So some of the stuff that I want to work on in the shop tonight, I need to do a little bit of normalizing on a couple of knives and get them possibly heat treated tonight. Plus, I need to do some grinding on this knife right here. I figured I would show y'all the grinding process on something like this because it's definitely not your normal knife to grind. But figured I would show that off. I thought about doing a little bit of forging, but I don't know. We'll see. We're gonna see how this night takes us. But first things first, I need to toss this little knife up here in the forge and move y'all over just a little bit, so that it can start normalizing. I gotta do my first reconnecting. Let's see. There we go. Hi. But yeah, so I'm going to toss this in the forge. Right now it just has a whole bunch of clay on it, so that it can just be heated for a part of it. I really don't need the little cable that's on it, but I'm going to be utilizing that to hold it while it is cooling down. So what's going to happen with this stuff that I have on the outside of it, it is going to insulate the blade for the hamon part of it. So I think it's going to be awesome. So you expected my voice to be deeper? I guess it really just depends on the time of day. At the end of the day, I pretty much sound like this. In the morning, my voice is deeper. And if I don't have like a sinus thing going on, my voice sounds different than what it is right now. Okay, So I've got my shop door open behind us a little bit because you don't want to have your forge on and it being fully enclosed. So even though I feel like I'm kind of defeating the purpose of getting warmth in here, it's still pretty warm while I'm doing this. But I think right off the bat, what I want to do is do a little bit of multitasking. I'm gonna let that heat up so that I can then pull it out, let it cool down, and I'm gonna start getting stuff set up to grind the bevels on this knife. Clay looks pretty thick. That is because I need it to be that thick. I'll tell you why here in just a second. Make sure to keep that in till it cools. Here's running the clay. Flash temper the edge. So, to give you an idea of what this clay actually is, fireplace mortar caulk. It's rated to 2,000 degrees. That's what I put on there. What's up, Stray? So what'll happen is whenever I actually quench this, all of that will just kind of start flaking off. So basically, I'll take that, quench it, and then I basically just flake the stuff right off of it. It works out real well. And it's going to get down into the teens tonight here. So right now it's about 20-ish degrees outside wind chill wise. So this is, it's kind of like a mortar silicone. It's what you use to do the seams of like fireplaces and stuff like that. It's just rated to 2,000 degrees. It insulates it. I've used this on several hamones and it's worked out real well. Now, of course, this is 26C3, so it's not like 1095 or anything like that. It creates an insane hamone by itself. So if I just edged quenched 26C3, you'd get a nice hamone line. It will. 26C3 likes to auto hamone. And trust me, the best life. I understood what you meant. I don't have a pipe stretcher now. Golly. I get where y'all are going with that. What's up, Steve? So it's not that we're making anything tonight. I've got a blade heating up right now so that I can end up thermal cycling it, grain refining. Turn it over and make sure that edge is coming up to 10. So with this particular knife, I only need to do very little grain refinement. I've already done some cycles already before I did this step. And I agree with the fade. Had a question, you work on a chef's knife. So whenever it comes down to some of the knives that I'm working on for hamones and stuff like that, I tend to still end up grinding them after I do the heat treat process. So I ground this down to about the edge thickness of a in between a nickel and a dime, the edge of a nickel and a dime. I'll end up grinding it a little bit further after the heat treat process, and then I will do the etching and all that stuff, and that will show the hamon. So it still has a little bit to actually go after this. 26C3, you could actually grind it pretty thin and do the heat treating process, and it works out pretty fine. But this is going to be something simple. Do I ever do any Damascus? Yes, I do. One of the knives that we forged on one of the live streams was this one right here, which of course is a go by billet with 1084, 15 and 20, and then ladder Damascus all the way down the cutting edge. And of course we did that on the live stream, showing the whole process. And then I've got other knives. This is the profile of the knife that I've got in the forge right now. This is it in Damascus. So that's the profile. The one that I'm doing is slightly bigger than this right here, the one that's in the forge heating up. But I like the profile so much. This, of course, is for a customer, but I like the profile so much that I was like, I want to make one for myself. Right now, I'm just making sure that I bring it up to temp just for this last little grain refinement cycle. Let that do its thing. Make sure we don't bump our head into it. Let's see here. What y'all saying here? Thank you, Steve. Need to find somebody to forge a big old Damascus billet. I can do that. Scale welded. I think that yours should be able to get up to temp with you having the forced air now. Trigo or Negro. Let's see here. Make it hotter. Yeah, you can hear the stuff, the actual clay making noise right now. As it's going through and contracting. Yeah, use coal. There's a lot of people that can do that. Just use some coal. You'll be fine. You'll be fine. All right, so let's go ahead and I'm going to do another normalizing knife. So I've got this one right here that I need to go through and normalize. This is one of the ones that's going to go on the website. I've got it ground to heat treat thickness, and I need to do my grain refinement cycles for it. This one, it's actually big enough in the middle section that if I wanted to like choke up on it and hold it like that, I could. Or if I want to hold it like this, you can. But that is a real nice profile for one of my ring knives. And then that's kind of like a blacksmith style ring that's just forged out, and I'm going to do a little loop inside here. But yeah, that is going to be one cool looking knife. And you see how thin I got the edge on this one. But that one's got to go into the forge. Start thermocycling it. So one of the benefits to my forge is I can just, you see my hair touch the blade? So I can just take and put that in the forge on the floor off to the side and let it do its thing. When it comes to my forge, the way that it works, my burners are on the side. And what they do is they blow onto the wall and wrap themselves around and create a vortex. There's no flame actually touching the blade. So I can put that blade pretty much anywhere in the forge and it's going to be perfectly fine without having to have a baffle or something in there to make sure that everything is uniform heat-wise on the inside. All I got to do is shut my bricks a little bit, let it heat up. It'll heat up nice and uniform, and then pull it out, let it cool. We do think coal is a huge hassle because you don't just light it and let it do its thing. What is the difference quenching with water and oil? So some steels are water quenching steels, some steels are oil quenching steels, some steels are plate quenching, air hardening steels. It just depends on the steel more than the medium. It's like you'll have tool steels that are water quenching, stuff like that. And then you'll have people that will do like a hybrid quench where they'll take and they'll quench the edge in water and then plunge the rest of the blade in oil. So you'll have some people who do swords like that, to where they'll edge quench the steel in water and then finish quenching it in oil. So you got a lot of things that are different. Let's see here. Forge with both have pros and cons. That's true. Thank you, Duck. You'd be clueless with propane? So you can forge weld with a side burner. You just gotta let it build up heat enough. And like whenever I first started doing it, I was using a one burner forge and I was doing everything with it. I've got a set of forge bricks that are behind the propane tank right here that are actually set up for a one burner forge. I normally keep that. Let's see here. So this is that burner. It is a very, very, very simple setup. That's the tip. That's the pipe. So yeah, that is the burner that I use for that particular forge. Just the one that you figure out on, you watch a video on YouTube and you're like, oh yeah, I can make that. This is one of those burners. Just a whole bunch of stuff from Home Depot, Lowe's, stuff like that. See you later, S. I have top burners. I set the steel to the side. Forge gets around 2,800. Nice. But yeah, I use these for my sacrificial forge welding forge, the one where I'm not worried about melting the floor of it with flux or any of that stuff if I end up using that. So let's check this. It's good. On the first one, The first cycle, I'm bringing it up to 1600, and then I'm gonna let it cool outside the forge, standing up. I don't tend to lay them down on their sides just because it will go through and it will tend to warp whenever we do that. I'll put the oil in front of the forge. Let that warm up. While that guy is cooling down the rest of the way, I'm going to let that oil warm up. Let's see here. Grab 1084, 1520 at some point, give it a go. There you go. Now, one of the things that I need to work on is I need to start grinding this knife right here. This is one that we forged on the last live stream. Now, the thing that I did on this that I didn't do on the live stream was forged in this fuller. So, forged in the fuller, that was Duck's idea. And I actually like it because there was a little dip right here where it kind of dipped in. And whenever I pinched that and I forged that fuller in, it went ahead and brought this out a little bit. What's the biggest thing I've made? I've made swords. Those are probably the largest things that I've made. But this right here, spear point, kind of like a dagger / knife. But yeah, did the fuller in there. That looked really cool. Good profile on this. We got to grind in the bevels. Now, of course, with this, the bevels aren't going to go. I'm not going to grind all the way up to here. So you're not going to see clean bevels all the way up. My goal is to feather the bevels up into the forged texture on both sides. Now, what I'm going to be doing with this is I'm going to be going through and grinding freehand on them. I'm not going to be using plunge line jig or anything like that. I'm going to be holding it there and I'm going to be grinding it. There's not going to be any jig or anything. It's not really necessary to have a jig because the bevels are already forged in and I'm just feathering things in. So y'all are going to see me do that here in just a second. Now, we're going to let that oil continue to warm up while we start doing our thing over here. Come around. And make sure this is actually catching some of that heat, and it is. Right now the oil is about 90 degrees, between 86, 90 degrees. So we'll let that oil heat up a little bit more while we do this. Now what I'm going to have on here, give me 1 second. Center the belt up so it's easier to start doing this. So now, as I'm going through and I'm grinding this, I'm using a slightly used Norton Blaze 100 grit belt. I've got, fresh ones and all that. But what I wanted to go ahead and do is grind to a center edge thickness on this. Now, I'm only going to be grinding down just a little bit on it to initiate those bevels and all that stuff pre-heat treat. I do still need to heat treat this blade, and I want to be able to straighten it up if I need to with a straightening hammer or whatever. Right now, it is looking absolutely fantastic, so we're good on the straightness for that. What I'm going to do while I'm doing this is I'm going to come in at a steeper angle, like this right here, and I'm going to grind all the way down the edge of this, and that is going to make sure everything is nice and flat. and I'm going to create my center cutting edge from this angle. And then I'm going to take it, once I get that center edge nice and centered exactly where I need it to be, then I'm going to take and I'm going to grind it from the side like this, both sides on there. And again, I'm going to be freehanding this. This is not going to be something that's going to be in a jig or anything like that. I'm going to be matching up the bevels based on the striations that happen to the blade from the belts. I'm going to match it as I flip to either side. Now, I'm going to go ahead and start grinding that to the center, top and bottom on this, and then we'll go ahead and start grinding in the bevels. Is this a good angle? Can y'all actually see this pretty well right here? Also, I'm going to go ahead and take the hoodie off. It's chilly in here, but it's not so bad that I have to have the hoodie on. So what I'm doing there is I am grinding just a little bevel all the way down it on both sides, and I'm matching that up to the thickness of this heel right here. So my heel is nice and centered. It's almost the thickness that I want pre-heat treat. So you'll see that shiny part comes all the way back and it fades to almost nothing right here at the heel. So it's a little bit bigger up through here where the blade was wider, and it comes back to almost nothing on both sides. And what we're doing there is we're creating a nice straight edge that you see. This is the back of the knife, the handle. You'll see it'll split that handle perfectly on there. So, I mean, it's definitely working exactly how I want it to work. Now, y'all still able to type where I can see y'all? Or did the messaging kind of stop on me? Make sure I like how everything's working on there. It's looking good. Hopefully the messaging didn't stop. I have it set to all messages right now. But let's see here. There we go. I just needed to reset the messages a little bit. All right. Let's see here. From where it was before to where y'all are at now. K-bar vibes. Yep. what's the coolest thing you made? Some of the more heavily designed knives are some of my favorite ones. You get K-bar vibes from that. Full or short bevels. I don't know the vibes. Be forged down, edge thickness. What's up, OG? Let's see here. Shade background so you can read everything. So I'm doing some heat treating, and I'm grinding on this knife that we forged on the last live stream. Just got done grinding the edge straight and all that. And yes, when it comes to have I forged things down, I don't know if you were talking to him or me or what, but let's see. Like my like hardcore forged to finish knives, where they actually have a pretty thin edge, like that right there, decently forged to finish. Edge thickness is all right. This is a forged to finish knife. So even though this has a thinner edge that's forged, you can see the difference in the edge thickness on this knife. So that is forged to finish. That will be just sharpened. And you can see how smooth I got the cutting edge right here, planishing. There's no texture really. Like this is the texture from some of the forging. All of this smoothness is still forged. All the way down that edge. But that is a forged to finish knife with fully forged bevels. You can see the transition line for the plunge that swoops up like this. So from this area right here, this line, those are the bevels that come down into there, and then this is the ricasso on the flats. But yeah, that's one of my forged to finish builds. Of course, y'all have seen a lot of my forged to finish stuff. Yeah, that one is so thin you can sharpen it as is. I'll show you what I mean. So, ground blade, and forge blade. So they're the same thickness. This ground blade right here and this forge blade. Let's see here. Yeah, this won't have any grinding done to it. I'll just sharpen that thing. That's it. That's the only thing that'll happen to it. No bevel grinding whatsoever. That's all hammer, and then it'll just be sharpened. Eric, if I had a really cool art send to you, would you? Yeah, I'll show it off on the table. Yeah, and I'll show that off on the table too. All right, let's check this oil real quick. Oil's at 106 degrees just for being in front of the forge. Okay, so the reason why this particular knife, I did not do a forge to finish on it, is because I wanted to grind. I wanted to actually have that transition line between the grind of the bevels and the texture down the ridge, the medial ridge down the center there. That was the whole point behind not forging it super thin. Sell them for you, give you the money. I can't really do that because we get in trouble for selling other people's knives on our tables. That is kind of a big pet peeve of everybody there. So you either have to be a person who's there selling other brands' knives, or you got to be there selling your own stuff. You know what I mean? Okay, let's go ahead and grind some more on this. So, if you want to be able to grind and get yourself even grinds, what I always suggest is start grinding on your weaker hand. So my weaker hand is my left hand. So I'll set my grinding and I'll be working on that. And then all I have to do is use my strong hand, and use that to match what I did on the weak hand side. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to work myself up to the middle a little bit as we grind this. And what you'll see is I'm just going to be keeping an even stance on this. I'm not trying to do this with it. I'm primarily moving my body. And you can see where my end grind line, where my plunge, if you want to call that, is going to be, is all the way back here. If you look where I'm at, I'm still only up here. The reason behind that is the center section right here is a little bit thicker than this back section. So I'm just going to grind this down, and as I get through that thicker section and it brings those bevels up, it's going to naturally start working its way back here to this little area, and it's going to give me a nice little plunge line that kind of radiates back like that. Not sure how to write that down. Seriously, that'd be cool. I'm all for that. We'll link up and talk about that after this. Both of y'all. Okay. Grinding time. What I'm going to do, since I've already worked through some of that belt, I'm gonna go ahead and switch to a fresh belt, just to make this a little bit easier on y'all to watch. Remember, I'm doing this. This is one of the nice things about forging these knives before you go through and grind them. So because I forged in my bevels, you know, we already have the bevels forged into this. Like it's a spear. I went ahead and forged everything in. Because I did that, I don't have to start with some 36 grit belt. I'm using a 100 grit belt to do this. And it is working just fine to get after it. You'll see how much changes from where we are right now with that bevel to where we're about to be. Look at how clean that bevel is, by the way. All you got to do is get confident with what your body's doing, and you won't have any waves in it or anything like that. And let your belt do the work. So that is where I'm going to leave that particular bevel. Looks like there's a line in it, but there's not. Water. So I'm going to leave that bevel preheat treat just like that. Whenever I finish grinding the thickness, it will, this little radius right here will work its way all the way back here, like what I have marked over here. Because I want the end plunge to end at this rear section right here. So I think that's going to look real nice. But now we're going to go ahead and grind just like that on the other side. Get it nice and going. And then we'll end up working on the top bevel. And that'll give us that nice spear point that we're looking for. What's up, Bob? How you doing? I got my grizzly and a 36 grit belt. It's terrifying. Yeah, 36 grit belts, man. I just think that the amount of crap that you have to do to get rid of 36 grit grind lines is a pain in the butt. I'm not a big fan of that. Now, if you're doing this without a plunge line jig, what's up, KT from Chicago? If you're doing this without a plunge line jig, you know what? Plunge line jigs let you bump up to the edge of the platen, and it kind of makes it easy for you to see what angle you were at. All you need to do is match these little grind lines that are on here. Let's see if I can get a good light. These little striations from the grit of the belt. Just match that up to the edge of your platen, and you'll be golden. So you can see on here where the thick part is. So this section from here to here is about the thickest part of the blade when it comes to forging. And down here is actually a thinner section. So this section of the blade is thinner than the belly right here when it came to me forging it. So right now, I'm not worried about trying to correct this in the grind right now. I know that this is thicker, so even though my bevels look like they're kind of weird, they're smooth, which is what I'm going for. I'm not worried about this transition line right now. All that stuff will get worked out as we start going through and grinding this. Some people will try and chase this area right here. They'll sit there and try and move it and adjust it, trying to get it to look like what this is right here. But this didn't even start off like this. Just work with the process. Be paying attention to your blade, understanding where the thick part is, and that you'll end up getting everything to line up how it's supposed to go. What's that?
Somebody mentioned something about turning your live stream on TV so you can see the comments a little easier.
What? Hold on. Okay. I didn't think about that at all with the I didn't realize that that's what you were saying on that. I was like, what? Okay, so I'm gonna let that do its thing. We're at 114 degrees on the oil just from it sitting in front of the forge right now.
I'll find it. You go.
No, I got you. Because this remote is like, it hates life.
It's because it lives in your shop.
Well, it hated life before that because our son was a child, threw it everywhere, and spilt stuff on it.
Oh, batteries?
Let's see. I really don't need that big a thing. I'll let you play with it. Basically,
Batteries on?
yeah, the batteries are good. You just gotta press that home or get it to do the thing. Okay. While Miss Rivers is doing that thing, we are going to heat this blade up and quench it. Got it. You know, if y'all are still newer to the live stream, I've got this blade that I'm going to be creating a hamon on. I've already thermocycled it. Now I need to go through and heat it back up one more time. And quench it. So I've got that in the forge. Got the oil warmed up.
Because
She's over here trying to get us copyrighted.
the whole game is basically an elaborate scheme to make you buy more food.
I'm trying to turn down the volume.
It's got a puffer jacket on it. It does. That stuff swells up quite a bit whenever it's heated up. And by the way, it's not exactly clay. I say clay, but it's not clay. It's a silicone type compound, if you want to call it anything. Or if you call it mortar silicone, because for some reason, if I say mortar cock, all y'all and y'all's brains turn that into something else. Let that come off the tent. It's clay. Hey, she's got the YouTubes pulling up over here.
Oh, I had it. I just didn't see the chat.
YouTubes. It's not my fault. I'm from the internet. We gotta do that in order to see the chat. I don't want her in here while I'm grinding, so that's the reason why we're doing the heat treat part of this. Wanted to let it come off the temp. So what we're going to be doing, I'm going to be bringing this up to about 1500 degrees, and it's going to be in between 1500 and 1525 whenever I quench. I am quenching and this oil right here that's heated up to about 120 degrees. And what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to go in, I'm going to go back and forth, and then the clay, the coating that's on it is basically just going to flake away, and I'll end up with a hamon line from it differentially hardening.
Don't say this out loud.
I don't even know what this is. Let's see here. It's been so long since I've had to actually log into this thing. So I maybe this? I think it's that. I think so.
Okay.
Try that out. If it's not that, it's probably some crazy random thing. When it comes to logging into YouTube, I have to be super crazy about it because all of the YouTube thieves try and steal your channels. So my password has to be ridiculous sometimes, and I've got to like not use my Google email on anything because I get sent emails by people who are trying to phish my account daily. I get them daily. It's crazy. I mean, it's just like constant emails from people who are trying to steal my account so that they can turn it into a knitting channel or something. I don't know. We'll tell you this, a bunch of my friends have had their content stolen, and it's not a fun thing to try and get it back. It takes forever for YouTube to fix that.
What about the local friend who had his Facebook account hacked?
All right. I'll let this go for another minute, and then we should be good on there. Did that actually work?
Yeah.
Ah.
I'm gonna try something else.
If this doesn't work within the time that I heat treat this, we're just not going to do that anymore.
See, there's you.
Well, I mean, well, yeah, because you can't use my phone.
You're fine.
All right, so we're almost at the temp that I want this to be. The cool thing about 26C3, which is the steel that I'm using for this, like I said, it creates a very drastic hamon. A really cool line.
I'm gonna try something.
Okay, now we're almost where we need to be on that. I'm going to move the oil just a little bit so that, for one, whenever I pull this out, it's not directly in front of the forge. Gotta be picky with how you heat treat. If not, you end up screwing things up. Make sure you have a nice good soak on the steel. Make sure that it's a nice uniform color. Get some nice flames. This is Parks 50 in here, so we're getting some decent flames. I'm gonna fully submerge it. Now what I'm going to do, and I'll end up cleaning up this mess here in just a little bit, but let's see here. Yeah, watch your toes, young lady. Watch your toes. Oh, that smells. Get a better grip on that. And you'll be able to see the hamon line just from this right here. So now, I grab it, start pulling the baling wire that I use off of here. So I use the baling wire kind of as like a binding helper. Ooh, you better calm down. Stop trying to come out of these tongs. Last thing I need to do is drop you, you little son of a gun. Turn that off. Probably used quite a bit too much baling wire on that. So, well, let me get my little pointer. So let's see if you can actually see this. There you go. This right here is my line. So from this to up here. You've got the actual transition again on this side all the way up through here. So two different hardnesses right now. And of course, you'll actually get to see what the hamon fully does whenever I clean everything up on this. I do want to kind of see. I'm going to have to sweep all this because crunchy stuff in my shop bothers the heck out of me, which is kind of weird because I'm a knife maker. Here we go. This is going to show you even better than what I was doing a second ago. Voila! So there's one little side, and that's not exactly what the hamon's going to look like, but that shows you that transition for that differential hardening. See, that's the other side right there. Oh, you gotta love that. So, just using some simple clay that you can get from Harbor Freight. I always want to say Harbor Freight. Home Depot. You're not getting that crap from Harbor Freight. Watch your foot. Watch your feet. I can't help the fact that you're in here and I'm not used to you being in here doing stuff. Ugh. Got a whole extra human in here and I'm trying to not mess up the process. Put it in my little vise that I use for pretty much every file testing that I do. You go ahead and finish doing your thing.
You messed it. All right, you can see.
I messed her up. Well, just so you know, Nisha, I'm going to be sweeping behind you here in just a second.
I'm sorry I'm taking out my ankles.
I don't know. I might take out your ankle with the broom.
There's a pointy thing right here.
There's a pointy thing. Y'all don't let her stand with that pointy thing, guys. Don't let her do it.
Ah, don't say
Just like, right? It's like all the things that you can get demonetized for. That's probably one of them.
yes. Violence. Hello.
So what do y'all think about the whole TikTok thing possibly getting banned? Or I guess getting banned and then having the whole 90-day thing. I think it's funny because I just started actually using TikTok for some of the shorts and all those things. I think it's kind of interesting that the moment that I decide that I'm going to try and do that so that I can live stream on there, the government's like, you know what? We're banning that. Yeah, 26C3 is what this is. You can't stand when people are in your workspace. I feel you. Master 4 collab. Heck yeah. Yeah, I know. Whenever I'm trying to cook and people are in the kitchen, I'm like, people, move. Not a fan of the talk. Their video editing software is 5 times better than YouTube. I think that if they could figure out something with it so that people aren't keeping all their crap, I really don't think it's a big deal, just because people can get all that information through YouTube anyways, or your Facebook, or all that crap. There's phishing software for everything, so I'm not that worried about it. But what I like about TikTok is I can put a short in there and it will edit it with the music and transitions and all of that stuff for you. I wish that YouTube had that. And I think that YouTube needs to take some cues from that app and roll them into their software, because it would make life so much easier. You know what I mean? Wouldn't have social media to begin with, but yeah, you kind of have to have it for knife making. Filling my what's up, Sugarman Conniver? By the way, that guy right there, that's Chip Carlisle. I've got a really cool thing coming from him that we talked about on the podcast that we recorded last night that should be coming out today. Soon, if it's not already out. We talked about it, and I've got a really cool thing coming from him that I get to show off. Yeah, it's up there. I get to show off in the actual videos and stuff like that. There's like there's a lag between what I see and what's up there. So whenever I'm doing this and pointing back at y'all, it's it's so funny. Hold on. Let's see how long it takes for it to.
Right there. Oh, hello. And then I'm seeing it again.
Chip is the best knife maker in the world. Is that what we said? Only thing about Chip though is his tangs are too short. The twine is used so the clay mortar. Yes, it makes it to where it has something to stick to without having to, without it sliding down. It lets you actually put it on there and it stays in place.
Podcast. What's the name of the podcast?
Knives Templars. So the Knives Templars.
Knives.
Yeah, not the Knights Templars. The Knives Templars. And this last episode that we did, there is a lot of really good knife making information in there. Like we had a few people submit questions, and a lot of us got to go through the table, around the table, and answer how we would actually overcome those particular situations within knife making, or what suggestions we have within those. So if y'all were ever going to listen to one of the podcasts as a knife maker or an aspiring knife maker, this last one that we just released, that's the one to listen to. Okay, so I'm gonna move this oil out of the way. And
I'm just going to make sure the front water hose is sealed.
yes, please. Okay. Before we start grinding on that, I'll pull the knife that we just got done heat treating over here. So one of the things that I like to do after I get done heat treating, for one, make sure it's straight, and that thing is straight as an arrow, which I think is a weird saying because a lot of arrows don't fly straight. They fly like this. They don't just go straight. Straight as an arrow is kind of weird. And some of them were made out of sticks, but it is nice and straight. What I'm looking for is to be able to file down this edge and for it to transition from this kind of dull noise to a sharper, crisper noise. And then I will test it with my my actual file. Not this file, a hardness file. I use this particular vise for pretty much this and cutting down stock. So you'll hear it start to transition to that more crisp, sharp noise. And that's because it's no longer catching. It's not catching the steel. That section of the steel is harder than this file. Now we can take our handy dandy Amazon China made. Oh, these are made in Japan, actually. Made in Japan. Take these, take one of our hardness files. This is a 65 HRC file, and see if that skates. And this is 26C3, so it should absolutely skate a 65 file. And it skates it like a son of a gun. Even trying to dig into it and putting pressure behind it doesn't catch at all. So typically on a 26C3 knife, whenever I temper this back, I'm only going to temper it back to at the lowest I'll go is 65 HRC. So on a 26C3 knife, especially a little chef knife or a petty knife, that's not going to be used to like chop through bones and stuff like that, I will temper this back to about 65 HRC or 65 Rockwell. I will not temper it below that. I have had some of these chef's knives go out at about 68 HRC. So it's pretty cool that you can do that. It's going to have a really beautiful hamon. It is pulled down enough that I can touch it. But that is going to have a real nice hamon. And it's cool being able to show you all the actual process of that. And getting to see me flake it off and do all of that in real time. Yeah, you can get them up pretty high. So one of the things to know about your heat treat process, some of these things, some of them you can get them up pretty ridiculously high in hardness, and then you'll go through and I always want people to go through and actually do the research for the right recipes for tempering, because on a knife like this, I'm going to temper this at 300 degrees for 2 hours times 2. Just 300. I'm not using the 400 degree method that everybody uses. I will go back 200 because right now this knife should be about 68 to 69 HRC with the process that I do. And I'll temper it at 300 and only bring it down to about 65. And be golden right there. My tang and my spine, all of this area, all this area right here, all of this is softer. Okay? This is probably in the low 50s for hardness. So the edge is nice and hard, but everything above that is a lot softer. So I don't have to worry about my tang cracking off or breaking or this area being brittle or anything like that. There's going to be a lot of toughness built into everything above here, but this can stay nice and screaming hard. That's a weird phrase. Yeah, it's for a kitchen. So this overall profile will look like this right here. This is the handle and blade. That's what this profile is going to look like. And the material that I'm using for this one, it's going to have micarta, little bolster in the front, some little jade micarta, and then some bog oak for the main body of the handle. So it's going to be that order, just like that. And I've got a pin that matches this kind of jade / turquoise color. So I think that's going to be a really cool looking setup on there. Trying to get away from making knives for sale. Okay, I'll shut the door a little bit so that my heater actually brings the heat in here. Accident knives aren't costing too much. I know y'all have been typing like a son of a gun, so I want to answer some of these. I don't want the equipment to make great knife. Okay, I see what y'all were talking about. Okay, cool. Podcast stuff and everything. Really want to lean into making hatchets and axes, tomahawks. So what I'm going to be doing on, I don't know if I'm going to do it on a live stream or I'm going to do it on a video. I want to do, if I got it here. I've got tomahawk handle, tomahawk drift, and a bunch of farrier's rasps. So I kind of want to forge weld a few farrier's rasps set up for tomahawks. I'm going to use this handle for a handle idea. I'm not going to use it for that particular setup, but I'm going to use this as kind of like the idea to get to. I've got a really cool tomahawk that I'm going to be making for this. Start for cool company, Dude Tools for Forging Co. Camp Hatchet, small EDCs. Heck yeah. Dude Tools sounds bad. I mean, they have dude wipes. Think about that. Okay, so let's get back to doing some grinding on this. I'm going to move the stuff that could possibly fall off of this workbench that I have my 2x72 attached to. Ooh, I did want to show you all this. This is a knife I'm going to be, or a piece of steel I'll be making a knife out of here soon. This is a farrier's rasp, but it is double rasp. Doesn't have the file side. So this is going to have the triangles that you get from grinding into this steel on both sides, as opposed to triangles on one side and lines on the other. If you're wondering what I'm talking about with that, what ends up happening whenever you grind a farrier's rasp, you get these cool triangles on one side and you get lines on the other. I made this thing out of a piece of the cutoff a long time ago. Never really done anything with it. But yeah, it's a pretty cool process having both the triangles. All right, let's get back to some grinding. And I am going to get a drink first. If y'all haven't tried these, 7-Up Shirley Temple. It's just a really good 7-Up. All right. You would buy stuff from you would buy a tool dude from a tool dude. Well, you better lock it in. All right. So there's one side, there's the other side. This was the side that we did first. This is the second side. You can see we're starting to work down in this area to kind of match it up to that side. Do not be super worried about, like on a forge to, like a brute to forge knife, don't be worried about trying to match up the sides super well, because you could have different hammer strikes and it could be one of those things where things don't line up exactly how you would on like a super machined looking knife. Of your plan, location, partner shop open. That's cool. What I'm surprised about is that I don't have like 5 people going, "Where's your PPE at? Guys, where's your PPE at?" It's like it's hanging on the wall. what really melts those guys' brains is whenever I use my angle grinder without the guard on it. That absolutely just fries them. So right now we have this center section right here looking good. One out of coughing. Yeah. So typically, if I'm not doing a live stream where I'm only doing a little bit of grinding on a knife like this, yes, I use my mask that's right there. So if I'm going to be grinding a whole bunch of knives and stuff like that, yeah, I grind a whole bunch of them. Like, I definitely have it on if I'm doing that. Okay, so I am cool with the bevels on both sides of this right now, on the cutting edge side. Now I need to work on the spine side. What I'm going to be doing with that is just focusing on making sure I get everything even. So on this one, I'm going to do it a little bit different because I have it roughly marked on my strong hand side. So I'm going to start with that side and start grinding it so that I can then flip it over and know where to stop without having to go through and mark this side. So what I'm doing up here towards the top is I'm going through and I'm not trying to create a sharp plunge line. So I am slightly, I'm going to change y'all's angle real quick. All right. So whenever I'm coming in here and hitting this, I am gradually working it in. Gradually working it in. So I am smoothing it back. I am rocking it into there, if you want to call it that. So instead of coming in and hitting it hard on the belt, I am just kind of slightly tapping it and then pressing into it and pulling. And that's going to kind of give me a nice transition with my plunge instead of it being super harsh. So one of the things that I'm doing here is I'm going through and kind of working on this as if I was trying to correct a plunge line or correct a transition line. So I am working myself into this area. I'm already pretty good where from here forward, I like that. We've got a nice medial ridge created right there to the tip. You can see that, the two different sheens. That's looking good. It centers all the way up to my little marker line. But right now, I want to work into this area right here and clean that up just a little bit. So that is what I'm feathering back into it. So it's gonna look really cool. And then whenever I actually grind in the main bevels, I'll do that same thing into here, and I'll feather all this area back into there, which I mean, I could probably just leave it how it is right now and do both of those at that time, but I just want to screw with this, so I'm just going to do it. And I'm cool with where we're at right there. Like I said, I'll go through and these will come in after I do the heat treat process. As you can see, like I said, our ridge line is going right to that point. Like that is going to be one wicked looking knife. Ooh. Okay, so now I'm going to repeat that to the other side. And we'll be ready to go through and do everything else that we need to do. Friction folder next week. Is that what you want me to do? Yeah, I agree. I like to see how my brain works with the friction folder too. I've got a few ideas for them. I kind of want to do one of those forged ones where you use a piece of angle iron for the main body of the handle and all that stuff. So it's just all made out of steel. I might end up doing something like that. So now I'm going to replicate that top grind onto the other side. that side right there. Now, of course, it'll come through, and like I said, even out as I bring this section right here down. But you can see we have a nice sharp ridge going to that tip. And now, whenever we final grind it, this one will probably come back just a little bit to match where this is at, because it is about that far up into the texture. But I'm not super worried about that because it's a forged knife and it can be, you know, kind of funky. It's okay. It's not some machined finished knife. So I'm not worried about having it like machine perfect, because this is not something that I took and used some CNC machine to make. This was forged out of a rectangle and turned into this profile. The bevels were forged in, and then it was cleaned up on a 2x72. But you can see where we're at right now. One of the things that I'm seeing, and it will end up getting adjusted whenever I do the final grind. If you look at it right now, I don't want it to be that harsh on the light. If you look at it right now, it kind of angles from here to the tip. Y'all probably can't see it very much, but this ridge is a little bit closer to this side than this side over here. A little bit closer. Whenever I finish grinding this side of the blade right here, that will even itself up by default. This side right here, it runs pretty straight because I was able to forge it a little bit, I guess, better on this side. But that is going to be a wicked, wicked blade. Now it's going to look even cooler whenever I go through and, you know, after the heat treat process, I finish grinding it, and then all the forge scale that's on here is blown off in the quench, because you'll have the forge scale and the forge fuller that will come off. But that overall profile for a blade, like a fighter, is going to be absolutely crazy. And both edges are going to be sharpened. This whole edge is going to be sharpened, and from here up is going to be sharpened like a dagger. Full handle, full tang. Awesome profile. Like, that is going to be something else right there. I mean, if you want to put it on the end of a spear, you can, because it is going to be a spear point. And the way that this is set up, it is centered from the back of the handle all the way through to the tip. So that edge is straight at you. It's not kicked off to the side or anything like that. So you get a full tang knife, full tang, full handle fighter with the spear point on the end of it. And it's very comfortable in the hand. The way I did the swells on this and everything is just so comfy. With the way that it actually, your fingers split over the ridge right there. Whether you're holding it forward and reverse. How strong is it? Well, this is made out of the same material that I made my wakizashi out of, that I cut branches with. So I was showing this on the live stream where we actually forged this, and this is the wakizashi that I actually trim my branches with. That looks like it's rust and stuff, but that's actually the marks from the bark on it. But like, I use this to trim branches, and this only gets leather stropped. That's it. It has a 0 edge, so it is, the bevels go all the way down to the cutting edge, and so 0 edge on it, and you can still shave with it. Not even just shave, but exfoliate your skin. But you can see all my hairs and all that on there. And this is the same steel that I used for that. And I use this to cut trees, to cut branches off, all that stuff. And I've been doing that for about 2 years. I actually had the video of me doing this on the channel. But I use that same steel to make this knife. So when it comes to edge retention, I know that I can sit there and chop on branches all day and still be shaving sharp. And yeah, I teach classes. Plus, I also do the stuff on the YouTube live streams and everything like that. But that bad boy is going to be a beautiful knife. I hadn't really seen any knives like this, and I had an idea to do something like this for a while, and I thought, yeah, this is the time to do it. And then one of the guys here that's in the live streams, he actually talked me into forging the fuller in here. So that little fuller, this dip, is actually forged. It's not ground into the blade. You use a guillotine tool, which is a little, show y'all. This right here to actually go in and forge in that stuff. So it's not, I didn't use a machine to do that. That was done by hand with that tool. And I use those guillotine tools. Let's see. I know I've got another knife over here. Here we go. So this is a little sacks that I did here. The fuller that's in here, that was forged in. This is another one of my forged blades. Little sacks. And that fuller, that wouldn't surprise me because everybody else stopped talking. But yeah, this blade was fully forged, and then the fuller was forged. And I do a lot of ridiculous knives. If y'all haven't seen some of them, so it's not just that. I do some crazy, more artistic knives too. So ones like that right there. I'm still working on the handle process on this. That's the reason why, for people who've actually seen this build go, why I haven't been working on it. But yeah, so I do some crazier stuff, not just things like that, but then I also do production knives and ring knives and all kinds of stuff. And one of the things that a lot of people see on the channel is my fully forged integrals. So like this right here is a full integral knife where the handle is I-beamed. So this started off as a piece of round bar, and it's an integral blade, I-beamed, knife. Tools for dudes that use other dudes. Oh no! Don't do that. Do not make that your motto. But yeah, this particular knife, this was all hammer and anvil. The only thing I did was I ground in the bevels, but everything that you see, all the transitions, the full handle, all of that, that's all hammer and anvil. The whole radius on the spine, the radius on the inside, all the way up into this heel. That's all hammer and anvil. So from here back is only tools with hammers and anvils. So for people who, are like, was that knife forged? This whole entire thing was forged. There's no wood, anything like that. And that is a comfortable knife to hold. Love that. I do a lot of random knives like that and have fun with them. And then, of course, we do things like the chat talked me into doing this one on a live stream. Gomai with 1084, 15N20, and then ladder Damascus on the cutting edge. I got peer pressured into doing that. Audience will think it's hilarious. Yeah, your audience won't think it's hilarious. Dude tools for other dudes to use my dude tools. So, one of the other things that we did earlier in this, if I can find where I set it down, this was one of the other things that we did during this live stream. If you end up going back and watching it, we heat treated this knife, created hamon on it, so differentially hardened, where the edge is one hardness and the spine is a different hardness. So this had a material coated all over this area. So whenever I heat treated it, only this edge got super hard. And this all is softer. What I really like about this one, I wonder if y'all can actually see this on here. So the plunge on this knife, look at how that radius is down into this heel. You see that just that little bitty micro plunge on there? Where it just comes down and it just is just slightly proud of that little area right there. I don't even know if y'all can see that, but that little plunge that comes right down into this heel just turned out absolutely awesome. You see it right there where the light's shining off of it, right at the end of my fingertip. Whenever I get done with this knife, it is going to be such a beautiful knife. And I made this one for myself because I liked the knife that is going to the customer so much that I went through and made myself one. And it is going to be absolutely epic. But yeah, so there's that. Fun stuff. I don't need to set this down. I keep wanting to set this down, but I need to take it into my house and temper it after this. Whew. Okay. I know that time's not right. This thing says we've been going for 235 hours, 29 minutes, and 45 seconds. That is, holy cow. Am I familiar with Kyle Warrior? Yep. Absolute awesome maker. Awesome knife maker. So we do different styles of knives. Whenever I'm doing my process, I do a lot of forge to finish knives and brute to forge knives. Kyle does a lot of really clean, beautiful knives, and our knife making styles are just slightly different. Again, I like to do some of the more just fun stuff like this right here, where I take and do a forge to finish knife. Like the only thing that's going to be done to this knife after this right here, a grinder has not touched this at all. This is just hammer and anvil, this knife. The whole entire inside of the handle, the spine, everything is all hammer and anvil. The only thing that a machine is going to touch is to drill through for the pinholes, and then I'm going to sharpen it. That's it. And it is already forged down to its cutting edge on there. But like I said, the handle, the spine, all the way to the tip of the blade, what you can see is how thin that tip is. And then the distal taper all the way to the end of the handle. Everything is all hammer and anvil. The plunge line that you get in here, all of that. So when it boils down to it, you know, we have different styles of knife making, and the stuff that I do is just a little bit different than theirs. And I do teach classes at knife shows with this. I actually live stream at knife shows. I've got a couple of them on here that have like 100-something thousand views on each of the live streams. But it's one of those things where I go through and I will teach this stuff in person. And what I do is I show the process from, these are like some of the things that I show people, where we go in, we do our preforms, forge it down to this point right here from a rectangle, put a little notch in there for what's going to end up being our handle. This goes to this next right here, where we take that notch and we forge it in, this little wedge, and then we put a little notch on the back side here, and then that transitions to that right there, and then that transitions to that. And I show the whole entire process to go from this to that. And if you look at these, each one of these, I purposely did this so that people can actually see. If you look at them, all of these are the same profile. So as we go through and we start doing this process, and we go from that same shape, and we go from there to there to there, and then we forge into bevels. We go from there to there. When we forge in the bevels, start bringing that out, and we get to a full knife. Now, the reason why I show this process, were you needing something? Or are you just coming out here to say hi? Oh, my wife came out here to say hi. So this right here, I go from this. The reason why I show this is because all this steel on a lot of people who make knives, I say a lot of people, there are a lot of people that make knives and forge them and things like that. I'm not saying that forging is better than stock removal or something like that, but what I'm telling y'all is I took the piece of steel that would have fit in that right there. So if we just drew a line and we took that and we ground that out on a 2x72 and just ground all of this off, I took that piece of steel and I forged this knife out of it. So that knife right there, which is a full-handed knife, you can fit your full hand on there. Handle sticks all the way out there. That full knife that you would spend a decent amount of money for, it's got distal tapers and all of that. I forged that full knife out of that piece of steel. So I took what would have been ground out right here, took that same size piece of steel, and I turned it into a full knife. So that's the reason why I teach this whenever I'm teaching classes or I'm doing a demonstration on the benefits of forging this section versus grinding away or cutting it away and throwing that piece in the trash. You can get a full knife out of that piece of steel. I think it's real important to actually show that to people, because you see a lot of YouTube videos, and what they do is they'll take and they'll get their piece of steel, they'll draw the little template on it, then they'll get after on the grinder, and all that stuff goes into a bucket like this right here, and then it just gets wasted. So they go up there and they grind that whole profile, do all that stuff. That just gets removed. And I'm not a big fan of that. I want to keep all that steel in the blade. I want a big old blade that I can use and call it done. If I'm going to make a hidden tang, well, I'm going to forge that down. If I'm going to make a hidden tang knife, well, instead of taking and grinding all of this steel away, I'm going to forge this section down, and I'm going to make myself a hidden tang and use the least amount of steel possible in that process. All this is going to get forged, everything's going to be good, and I'm not grinding it away, cutting it away, and throwing it away. I think it's important for people to know how simple it is to do that, and that's the reason why I show this process, because I'm not doing anything super crazy in order to get to this step. All I'm doing are these simple steps of preforms. Forging this, and then showing the right way to go from this to this. And then to go from this to this. And if you just got to that and then you ground it from there, you would have still saved all that steel. Everything that's in this section right here, all of the steel in this section is still in this knife. Instead of being ground away. Look at how much steel would have been removed if that handle was ground away. Look at all that steel. So if you just went from this to this and then started grinding it, then you would still have a lot of material left in the blade. But I teach how to go from this to this in a very easy way, because all it is a little bit of extra profiling, a little bit of extra movement to go from this step to this step, and then you have even more steel left in the blade. And then definitely going from this step on the blade right here to this step by forging in your bevels. And you need to teach people how to do that stuff, because a lot of people learn from watching YouTube videos. They learn from watching different things, and you kind of pick up a lot of people's bad habits. You pick up the real quick way to do things versus if you just did some of these extra steps, then you'd be saving a lot of money on not grinding away the steel by being able to forge it into your process. But the issue is not having people show you how to do it in a very easy way with kind of more simple tools. Like I have a power hammer. I've got a power hammer. I could do all this crap with this tool right here, but I want to show y'all how to use the anvils and the right hammers to be able to get to these steps right here without actually showing y'all on some tool that y'all don't have access to. Y'all can get hammers from Harbor Freight. Y'all can get an anvil from Harbor Freight. Y'all can get stuff off of Amazon. Heck, I'm pretty sure I saw a London pattern anvil on Temu now. So you can get stuff from anywhere. You know what I mean? Learning from YouTube's fun. Learning forged and fire is where you get those sorts of problems. That's very true. And the reason why some of those things are an issue, learning from those things, is because these are things that are super edited so that all you have is all the flashy, shiny, sparks flying, flames part of the knife making process. So you get this, you skip tempering the knife, you skip thermocycling the knife, you skip handle profiling, ergonomics, why handles are shaped the way they're are shaped. You skipped a lot of those processes because what they want to show is the really cool side of knife making for retention. Just like right now, whenever I had the blades in the shot, we had like 145 people watching. I take the blades out of the shot, but go down to about 90. Because that stuff, that retention and that attention grabber is what they want. They don't want to show you the other stuff because that is boring, you know. But for me, I want to show all these things because I think that it is important for people to see how easy it is if you just go through and practice. Gotten so efficient with stock removal that the wasted material from multiple links can't even make a small hidden tag. When it says anything, yes, I do forge. Yeah, and I know you do, Mule. There's a big difference. And if you design your knives in a way that they can be cut out and you don't sacrifice material, that's great. You know, a lot of your knives don't have crazy profiles. So you're not making, you're not doing this profile. Doing this profile stock removal, you will waste a lot of material. But doing the profiles like this right here. You make these profiles, you can use a lot smaller material, you know, use material that's really small, and you're only grinding in a little section right here. You're not going to make a knife out of that section, that little shallow section right there. And you can take this right here and you can flip it this way on the other side and make it to where you can easily, boy, you lasted like 0.2 milliseconds. Hit with the band hammer, or at least the hidden hammer. So you can line them up to where you can easily just cut a 45 here and you don't waste a bunch of material. The difference is having this big depth right here for your handle. Doing that stock removal, you're going to have a lot of waste no matter what you do. It's just a thing that's going to happen by default. But your profiles, Mule, are not super like aggressive profiles. So it's one of those things where you do what you got to do. Now, I will tell you this. If you have elbow injuries and you're not trying to forge and do that stuff, that makes sense. I don't have elbow injuries, so I do a lot of forging so that I don't have to worry about doing stock removal. One of my things is if I don't have to wear my respirator, then I'm good to go. I like forging because I don't have to wear a mask and sit at my 2x72 for the whole entire time. I want to be over here hammering, and I want to be able to knock out all my knives like this and not have to go through and wear a mask the entire time I'm doing it. You know what I mean? I want to be able to knock these bad boys out and do all of that. Now, these could have been done through stock removal and I wouldn't have wasted much material, but man, having a respirator on for all that crap is sucks. Efficient is to swing a large hammer energetically. I will tell you this. If you're going through and you're swinging something like that right there, you're going to move it quick. Now, to be fair, that hammer that you just got to do a lot of your stuff, that is an anvil on a stick. What I typically use, I use this dog head hammer right here for a lot of my stuff. It's a big chunk of steel on a hammer or on a handle. I use that for a lot of my stuff. But yeah, getting efficient with how you forge is key. I can forge for a very long time without having to worry about getting tired because I've forged hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of knives. But the way that I look at it, I like the aspect of forging and doing the blacksmithing side of knife making. It is fun for me. And being able to do knives like this and get them very uniform just with hammer and anvil, and being able to forge plunges and stuff like that. Like this has a plunge line forged into it. My flats my bevels, there's two different sheens here. Shinier here, dull there. That's because this is my plunge, this is the bevels. And being able to go through, and by the way, this video is going to be coming out here in about a week of me actually going through and forging all 6 of these, doing a little bit of the grinding, showing what I did on that. It's just going to be a little like 10-minute video, one of my Shop Talk Tuesday videos. But I did film this process, and I am putting a video together for that. So y'all will get a Shop Talk Tuesday video here pretty soon. I was able to forge a 2-pound ball peen hammer to a tomahawk. Well, I bet you were. Plus, that thing did turn out pretty cool. If y'all didn't know this, we have a Discord for the YouTube channel and all that stuff. I thought about doing that whole forging a tomahawk out of a ball peen hammer thing, but I don't want to just get like a Harbor Freight hammer and do it. And I don't want to use one of my cool ball peens. You know, this ball peen hammer is like 30 years old. And I'm not going to take this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful made in the USA hammer and crush it all into a tomahawk. Not going to do that. That right there is a beauty. And my other ball peen hammer was turned into a nipple hammer. If y'all are wondering what that means. Nipple hammer. This is a straightening hammer. It's got a carbide ball bearing in the tip of it there. You use this to straighten blades. So a lot of people have never seen a ball peen hammer like that. But yeah, this was actually made by Chip from the podcast. He made that and sent it to me. And I've used that a whole bunch to straighten the blades. So let's say a knife has a warp to it. Let's say I heat treated this knife right here, and it's got a warp to it. Now, as you can see, this does not have a warp. It's nice and straight. Ooh, that thing looks good. So let's say this thing had a little warp in the blade, it curved. I could take that hammer, even after it's heat treated, even after it's hardened, and I can just hammer in little spots and take that warp out of it. So let's say this blade was warped and dished this way. So it kind of swooped up. What you do is you take and hammer inside. So if this is the blade, you hammer on the inside here. A lot of people think you'd flip it over and push it down like that. But you don't do that. You take that little hammer and you hammer, and it opens itself up like that because you're stretching the inside of the steel on just one side, and it's stretching this area and it flattens it out. It's absolutely crazy. It is a little magical process right there. That's I miss forging. Big chunk of spring steel. In my 20s, age starts to slow. How old are you, Mule? Remember, I'm 40 years old. So, you'll be fine. I remember doing a lot of things in my 20s that would have been fantastic. I remember doing things in my 30s that I probably shouldn't be able to do now, but I still do them all. But yeah, I'm 40. I'm still out here doing my thing. You just get your body used to it. Don't worry about it. You know, right now I can forge for 6, 7, 8. Well, I know for a fact that I can forge for 10 hours because I did it every Saturday and Sunday for 2 months. Like forging for 10 hours, you don't get blisters anymore. Your hands just, it just is what it is. My hands they just look like this all the time. And you don't have to worry about blisters building up anywhere on your hand anymore. They just do your thing. And I can forge for 10 hours straight and do 40 to 50 plus blades in that 10 hours. Do about 90, 100 on a weekend. So it's definitely pretty crazy. Most people don't forge that many knives. That's not a thing that people do unless you do it for a living. But yeah, I was doing about 90 to 100 every weekend for 2 months. So it was a lot. Getting blisters a while ago, but 16-pound hammer might bring them back. What got me is if you swing a hammer with 2 hands, this hand will develop blisters. So like if I'm a striker, if I'm striking for people, I tend to get blisters on this hand because this hand, it is good for holding tongs, but it hasn't developed the blisters for swinging a hammer. And so I do get blisters on this hand if I'm a striker, but for the most part, I don't get blisters at all, whether I use the bigger hammer, smaller hammers, anything like that. But yeah, I don't know how long we've been going or anything like that, but I think I think I probably what's my striking style? So it just depends, but for the most part, here, down, almost like I'm chopping wood. I don't go to the side or anything like that. I hold. Now, of course, my striking hammers tend to have a little bit longer handle than this right here. But we just drop down, boop, boop. I have some people that'll do it, and they'll come on the side right here and drop it down. And I've tried that, but I like just coming straight down and letting the weight of the hammer do its thing. Every once in a while, I'll come across the side and hit down and do that if I need to. But yeah, big old hammers. That is a large blacksmithing hammer right there. To give you an idea how big this actually is, this is a normal ball peen hammer. Like, it's such a small little hammer compared to that. I agree. We really could. Yeah, I think that ball peen is, what size is that? Let's say 24 ounce. I don't know. I have to actually check that. It's got to be close to 2 pounds. I mean, it's pretty, because that's a 2-pound turning hammer. So it's got to be slightly under 2 pounds. Because I mean, that turning hammer is almost the same. But that head, there's a difference there. So I just realized that those were so similar in size. I didn't realize that. And of course, that turning hammer is a Heller. Semi is a 4-pound. Nice. That's what. So I've got these two right here. So this one's a 3.9 ounce right here, and then that is a just over a 4-pounder. It's like 4. it's like 4 pounds, 5 ounces. Right there. He had them. That's just marked with the number, the serial number. But yeah, Fire Creek Forge made these for me. These are the ones that I use whenever I really try and do some crazy stuff. This radius on this round side is almost the same radius as a softball. So like whenever you're really trying to get after it, it is nuts. But yeah, those 2 hammers right there, I use those a whole lot prior to getting some of the ones from Frank. I use the dog head hammer that I got from Frank a lot now, but I just like the way it works. Or for a small run of ball peen tomahawks. That'd be pretty cool. Okay, guys, I think that I am going to call it here. All right, cool as hell. Thank you, Anthony. Those are by Elijah from Fire Creek Forge. He has a YouTube channel. If you look up Fire Creek Forge, he actually has videos of him making hammers like that and batches like that. He's a awesome dude. But yeah, I love all of my hammers that I have here. I made this rack for all of them. I may end up making another one because I've got to get a bigger rack, or either got to do that, or I'm going to add on another level on here and have it double stacked. So don't know just yet. Dog head looks like a lump of hammer that got punched wrong. No, that's this one. Look at how curved that is. Now I'm not going to show who made this because I'm not trying to call them out or anything like that. But yeah, that's got a nice little weird curve to it, doesn't it? And if you know who made that, don't be calling them out in the chat or anything like that. I'll have to have it removed. But yes, I personally, I understand that you don't like this, but I wanted a big chunk of steel, and I'm gonna tell you right now, if you've ever had to use a hammer like this, you would love it. And the handle is canted slightly, so whenever you're hammering on it, like if I just took this and laid it flat, the handle goes that way. And it just, whenever you're forging with this, being able to swing with this, it is something else. But I wanted that big face like this. I didn't want it rounded. I love this hammer. It's a beautiful hammer. I did not want that face. I wanted a big old chunk of steel. Now, he could have done all of his crazy facets and all that stuff, but I didn't want them. I wanted all the weight in here. Like, I wanted all of the weight where it needed to be. And I get it. It's not everybody's cup of tea. But yes, that thing is awesome. And, but yeah, I bought that hammer, the one that's over here. I bought that one because I wanted to support the people that did them, that made them. I'm not worried about it having like a weird profile to it. I don't really use the hammer because it's super light and the handle is super tiny. Like, look at it compared to the size of my thumb. It'd be like holding onto my thumb and forging with that for a while. Like, it is like, it's a very small handle. But for the price that I paid for it and just being part of the group that got them and all that stuff, it's just going to hang out on the old hammer rack and be a good little hammer that's just hanging out there. It's basically a planishing hammer, but my thing is, my planishing hammer is beautiful and works amazingly. And I like my planishing hammer. So I won't use that hammer as a planishing hammer like ever. But yes, it's basically a planishing hammer. So very light, very little bitty handled hammer. And again, I love the people that made them. I'm super good friends with those guys, and I just wanted to support them and have one of them just so that I could have one of them. So I wasn't worried about anything like that. But yes, okay. I think it's like 15 degrees outside right now. I'm standing in front of the heater, so that's a little bit nice. But I think, I haven't 100. That's true. We finished tonight, just so y'all can see this. We did this blade right here. We ground that. I want to see what it looks like if I actually clean the blade. That way it's not like, doesn't have all the smudges all over it. So that whenever I show it to y'all, y'all can actually see what's going on here. Okay. So these are the two things that we did. For the people who were wondering, for the people that just kind of chimed in, we ground the bevels into this forged knife right here. It is a spear point, kind of like a dagger, full tang fighter. We did that in this live stream. And then that still has to be heat treated. And then, of course, we heat treated this and did a differential hardening on it. So it's going to have a hamon. So two different hardnesses. The edge has one hardness. The spine has a completely different hardness. So did those in this video. Talked about blacksmithing, bladesmithing, and forging. And yes, I will definitely be doing a fun test with this right here whenever it's done. Because I want to be able to slice this way. I want to be able to slice with the back side of the blade because it's going to be sharpened on both sides. Stab test, the whole entire thing with it. It's going to be fun. And then we'll chop on some trees and do all that stuff because I know that the edge retention is going to be absolutely epic for all of that. What's nice is, even with how big of a knife this is, it is super light. And it is going to be super fun. But one heck of a fighter right there. Okay, so I need to go in and temper this one before I wait too long. Make sure that's all done. Go from there. Exactly what I said right there, Darwin. Some water jugs and all that. Yes, but again, before it gets too crazy, before I just start rambling, let's go ahead. Let's end it here. Thank y'all for being a part of this. Thank y'all for talking in the chat and having some fun. Thank you for everybody who joined in and said what's up and you know, ask questions and talks amongst yourselves. I really appreciate y'all. Guys, we're going to be doing a live stream next weekend. The difference between this weekend and next weekend is I'm probably going to start the live stream earlier next Saturday because next weekend is my first weekend where I start being off Friday, Saturday. So I'll be live streaming earlier in the day. We'll have some cool fun, see what we can get up to and do all that stuff. So be on the lookout for the live stream. I will go on my Facebook, Instagram, and of course here on YouTube to let y'all know what time we're going to be starting well in advance, so you'll know when to be on the lookout. Cool. So we'll go from there, guys. See y'all later. Y'all have fun. Be safe. Bye, y'all. And yeah, I will put a heads up for y'all.